Picture this. You're one of Hollywood's most celebrated directors. Your name alone guarantees Oscar buzz. A-list actors line up to work with you. But here's the thing nobody talks about. Some of the biggest names in Hollywood have flat out refused to work with Martin Scorsese. And the reasons? They're more shocking than you might think. Before we dive into the drama, if you're enjoying these untold Hollywood stories, hit that like button and subscribe for more vintage Hollywood secrets. Martin Scorsese. The name carries weight in Hollywood like few others. The man behind Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, and The Wolf of Wall Street has shaped cinema for over 5 decades. But behind those masterpieces lies a trail of burned bridges, rejected offers, and actors who swore they'd never work with him. What really happened behind those closed doors? Let's start with the one that still haunts Dustin Hoffman to this day. Back in the 70s, when Hoffman was riding high from The Graduate and Midnight Cowboy, Scorsese came knocking with a script. Not just any script, but Taxi Driver. The role of Travis Bickle was his for the taking. Hoffman met with Scorsese, took one look at the director's manic energy, thought he was completely crazy, and walked away. He later admitted this was one of the biggest regrets of his career. That role went to Robert De Niro, and the rest is history. But here's what Hoffman didn't know at the time. That crazy energy he saw, it was genius in motion. Then, there's the Mel Gibson incident that nobody saw coming. When Scorsese offered Gibson the lead role in The Last Temptation of Christ, the actor's response was immediate and brutal. Gibson was literally dying from food poisoning in a London hotel when Scorsese called. He dragged himself to the meeting, saw Scorsese in a dark room with 18 TVs playing simultaneously, screens he'd drawn all over, and Gibson didn't even let him finish his pitch. "I'm not doing that," he said, and walked out. No discussion, no negotiation, just a flat rejection that would define their non-existent relationship forever. But wait, it gets more interesting. Eric Roberts also auditioned for that same Jesus role. 5 auditions with Harvey Keitel. Screen tests that Roberts called the coolest he'd ever had. Scorsese offered him the part, and Roberts' manager convinced him to turn it down. Roberts now believes that rejection destroyed any chance of ever working with Scorsese again. "The movies we could have made together," he said recently, the regret still fresh after all these years. The Harvey Weinstein factor created another layer of complexity. When Angelina Jolie was heavily pursued for The Aviator in 2004, she refused the role for a reason that would only become public years later. She wouldn't work on any film produced by Weinstein. This was 13 years before the world would learn why. Her instincts were right, but it cost her the chance to work with one of cinema's greatest directors. The role eventually went to someone else, and Jolie never got another Scorsese offer. Harrison Ford's story adds another twist. When Cape Fear was in production, Ford was offered the villainous role of Max Cady. For an actor known for playing heroes like Indiana Jones and Han Solo, this could have been a career-defining transformation. But Ford had one condition. He wanted Scorsese to switch the roles, letting De Niro play the lawyer instead. Scorsese refused. Ford walked. The missed opportunity still resonates because Ford joined the MCU before ever appearing in a Scorsese film. Something that seems almost criminal given their parallel careers. Now, here's where things get really controversial. Some of Hollywood's most powerful actresses haven't refused to work with Scorsese. They can't work with him because he won't create roles for them. Nicole Kidman, one of the most versatile actors of our generation, publicly stated she'd love to work with Scorsese. Quote, "if he does a film with women." Think about that for a second. One of cinema's greatest directors has essentially locked out half of Hollywood's talent pool. Meryl Streep took it even further. When asked about working with Scorsese, she didn't mince words. "I would like Martin Scorsese to be interested in a female character once in a while, but I don't know if I'll live that long." That's Meryl Streep. 21 Oscar nominations, Meryl Streep. And she's basically saying she'll die before Scorsese writes a substantial role for a woman. The silence from Scorsese's camp on this issue speaks volumes. Madonna's near miss with Goodfellas reveals another dimension. She was actually the first choice for Karen Hill, Scorsese and producer Barbara DeFina went to see her perform on Broadway specifically to scout her acting abilities. But Madonna passed on the role. Some say it was scheduling conflicts. Others whisper it was creative differences. Either way, Lorraine Bracco got the part and made it iconic. But imagine Madonna in Goodfellas. The film would have been completely different. Michelle Pfeiffer's rejection of Casino follows a similar pattern. She was offered the role of Ginger, which eventually made Sharon Stone's career. Pfeiffer has been notably quiet about why she turned it down, only mentioning it briefly when listing roles she'd rejected. Was it the content, the character, or something about Scorsese himself? We may never know. The tension wasn't just with actors who refused him. Even those who worked with Scorsese sometimes found the experience challenging. During Gangs of New York, Daniel Day-Lewis took method acting to extremes that created genuine fear on set. He refused to speak to Leonardo DiCaprio for 9 months of filming. 9 months. He would walk the streets of Rome picking fights with strangers to stay in character. The other actors weren't acting when they looked terrified of Bill the Butcher. They were genuinely scared. Remember that famous funny how scene from Goodfellas? Joe Pesci improvised that entire sequence, and Scorsese deliberately didn't tell the other actors. Their uncomfortable reactions? Those are real. Ray Liotta genuinely didn't know what was happening. The tension you see on screen is authentic fear that Pesci might actually lose it. That's the kind of environment Scorsese sometimes created. Brilliant for the film, but traumatic for the actors. Speaking of Ray Liotta, here's a heartbreaking detail. After Goodfellas, Scorsese and Liotta planned multiple projects together. The timing was never right. The scripts weren't perfect. Scorsese later admitted his deep regret about never reuniting with Liotta before the actor's passing. He wanted to explore the gravity Liotta had developed as an older actor, especially after seeing him in Marriage Story. But they ran out of time. The physical demands Scorsese places on actors have also caused issues. During Raging Bull, the kitchen scene was so cramped and hot that actors were literally breaking down. Joe Pesci's famous "Who asked you" line wasn't in the script. It came from genuine exhaustion and irritation. The crying baby, the packed crew, the sweltering heat. It pushed everyone to their limits. Great for the film, torture for the performers. Margot Robbie's experience on The Wolf of Wall Street shows how Scorsese's pursuit of authenticity can push boundaries. She admitted to secretly dreading certain scenes, knowing they would live forever on the internet in slow motion. She worried about how it would affect not just her, but everyone around her. Scorsese's response? Everyone gets naked in this movie. That was his idea of reassurance. The Tom Hanks situation represents perhaps the biggest what-if in Scorsese's career. For years, they tried to get a Dean Martin biopic made with Hanks in the lead. It would have been their first collaboration, an almost guaranteed Oscar contender, but it never materialized. Hanks, who's worked with virtually every major director, somehow never found his way into a Scorsese film. The project died, and with it, the chance for what could have been a legendary partnership. But here's what's really fascinating. Despite all these rejections and conflicts, actors who do work with Scorsese often become obsessed with him. Robert De Niro has made 10 films with him. Leonardo DiCaprio, 7 and counting. Harvey Keitel keeps coming back. There's something about Scorsese that creates either devoted collaborators or permanent rejections. There's no middle ground. The Harvey Weinstein connection adds another dark layer to several of these stories. The Aviator wasn't the only Scorsese project tainted by Weinstein's involvement. Gangs of New York was plagued by conflicts between Scorsese and Weinstein, with rumors of creative battles that nearly destroyed the film. How many actors quietly stepped away from Scorsese projects because of Weinstein? We'll probably never know the full extent. Even success with Scorsese comes with a price. The Wolf of Wall Street broke records for profanity, with over 500 uses of a certain 4-letter word. The actors had to maintain that level of intensity for months. DiCaprio has talked about the exhaustion of keeping that energy up. Jonah Hill took the minimum salary just to work with Scorsese, then had to endure one of the most demanding shoots of his career. Here's something that often gets overlooked. In over 50 years of filmmaking, Scorsese has made exactly one film with a female lead. 1. Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. In 1974, starring Ellen Burstyn, who won the Oscar. That was 50 years ago. Since then, nothing. Not a single female protagonist. When you realize that directors like Spielberg, Coppola, and even Clint Eastwood have repeatedly featured strong female protagonists throughout their careers, Scorsese's half-century drought becomes glaring. It's not just that actresses struggle to get substantial roles in his recent films. They can't get lead roles at all. The religious controversy around The Last Temptation of Christ didn't just cost him actors. It created a divide in Hollywood that lasted years. Some actors wouldn't work with him because of religious objections. Others supported him but feared the backlash. The film that Gibson and Roberts rejected became so controversial that theaters were picketed and threatened. Maybe those who turned it down saw the storm coming. What about the actors who almost worked with Scorsese but didn't? The near misses tell their own story. Harrison Ford in Cape Fear would have been transformative. Dustin Hoffman in Taxi Driver might have changed cinema history. Michelle Pfeiffer in Casino could have redefined her career. Each rejection shifted Hollywood's trajectory in small but significant ways. The pattern becomes clear when you step back. Scorsese creates either lifelong collaborators or permanent alienation. There's something about his process, his intensity, his vision that doesn't allow for casual relationships. You're either all in or all out, and for those who choose out, there's rarely a second chance. Ray Liotta's death highlighted this tragic aspect. Scorsese had wanted to work with him again for 30 years. 30 years of almosts and not quites. When Liotta passed, Scorsese's statement revealed deep regret. The timing was always off, or the project wasn't quite right. I regret that now. Those words carry the weight of missed opportunities that can never be recovered. The broader question is whether Scorsese's methods, however brilliant the results, justify the toll they take. When actors describe genuine fear, exhaustion, and discomfort, when half of Hollywood's talent pool is essentially excluded, when relationships are permanently severed over single rejections, is the art worth the human cost? Consider this. Scorsese has created some of cinema's greatest moments through these extreme methods. The authenticity in his films comes from real emotions, real tension, real conflict, but he's also limited himself. By excluding women from substantial roles, by creating an environment so intense that major actors walk away, he's narrowed his own artistic scope. The tragedy is that we'll never see certain collaborations. Meryl Streep in a Scorsese film, Nicole Kidman bringing her intensity to his vision, Tom Hanks in that Dean Martin biopic. These aren't just missed opportunities. They're alternate histories of cinema that will never exist. As Scorsese enters his 80s, still making films, still pushing boundaries, the list of actors who won't or can't work with him continues to grow. Some, like Dustin Hoffman, live with regret. Others, like Mel Gibson, probably don't lose sleep over it. But all of them represent roads not taken in one of cinema's most important careers. The ultimate irony? Scorsese, who spent his career exploring themes of loyalty, betrayal, and regret, has created his own real-life drama of missed connections and burned bridges. The very intensity that makes his films great has also created a barrier between him and some of Hollywood's finest talents. What do you think? Are Scorsese's methods justified by his results? Should actors like Kidman and Streep keep hoping for their chance? Or is it time to accept that some directors just have their limitations? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed these behind-the-scenes revelations, make sure to subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories. The truth behind the glamour is always more interesting than the myth.